Welcome to Explaining the Plays, Renathal Quest Hunter, part number 2. I'm Uncorrupt, and I'm just going to be taking you through some games that I'm playing, explaining what's going on with my thought process, hopefully being able to explain what my opponent is trying to do. We're going to see if we can get some wins here. So, right off the bat, our opponent is showing Paladin. Paladin, not really a believable class right now. I kind of want to assume that this is actually going to be Rogue, just because I haven't really seen a whole lot of Paladins on the ladder. Although their golden portrait kind of checks out here, it looks like in the background. So, of course, we're keeping the quest. Shell Shot is a keep. Spring the Trap. I'm tempted to keep this at times, but I think we're actually going to toss it and try to look for something a little bit better. We're going to be able to find out pretty quickly whether or not our opponent is actually the Paladin that they are claiming to be. Gosh. And we're just going to get the quest down here, so... it looks like they may actually be 40 card control Holy Paladin, which is both good and bad. I mean, it makes it a little bit harder for our opponent to be able to find Cariel. If they don't find Cariel, we should be more than fine, but yeah, it's a little bit disheartening to see that right off the bat. No play here but to actually just ping our opponent. So my two favorite questions that I always like to ask while I'm playing, why and how. So for this, how do we win? And also, how does our opponent win? So how does our opponent win? If they're Holy Paladin, they're really just trying to outlast our damage. They want to get the Cariel down, and then they want to be able to buff their minions with the Cariel hero power. And of course, they'll be able to do a lot of face damage with the weapon. And we can see that it's actually Rogue. We're playing against 40 card Rogue here. At this point, we really only have one option for the cards that are in our hand. And actually really thankful to see that this is not Paladin. So again, if you come across Paladin, just know that right now, most people aren't playing Paladin. I think we just want to go ahead and get the Explosive Trap down here. It spends our mana. If our opponent procs this, it's going to give us quest progression. Other options is just ping them. Damage in this matchup is basically permanent. The only healing that the Rogue has access to is going to be Scabs, the hero card. And, you know, we're just not super worried about that extra 5 health. So pretty much any damage we have is going to stick. Unless there's some kind of, you know, randomly generated stuff, which is always possible with these, you know, rogues being able to create so many different things. Healing minions from Reconnaissance, Tooth of Nefarian, Jackpot. So we might be somewhat at the mercy of the RNG here. As we can see, they are going to actually be gaining some armor this game, and this card could actually be coming back multiple times here. So what's going to be the best way for us to approach this turn? I mean, we could just totally remove a minion with a piercing shot. And if we remove, say, Knoll with the piercing shot, they choose to attack into our Explosive Trap, then next turn we would have a Spring the Trap that would actually pull 2 secrets out of our deck. That thins our deck. That generally seems pretty good. We could Piercing Shot, we could March Shot just to try to discover something, but I think at this point the best thing to do is just going to be to get some damage off the board. And I'm going to choose that to be Knoll. With 40 cards in the deck, the Rogue is likely going to be running some kind of a Shadow Step. And so, you know, that could potentially open up some things to be able to Shadow Step a Knoll and then replay it for free. You can see here they are proccing the Explosive Traps. We'll be able to get the honorable kill on this if we so choose, to be able to get more secrets out of our deck. Also complete step 1 of the quest. They're actually going to honor kill their own minion here. That's an interesting choice. So we know for sure that they're going to have a thick hide Kodo in their contraband stash, and it's also going to be in Tess. It actually has to actually die for our opponent to gain the armor, though, which could be important as the game advances if we don't actually kill it. It's possible that they just don't gain the armor unless they're able to kill it from their side of the board. Unfortunately here, our play is already made for us. We're just going to have to get down the Dunbaldar bunker and shoot face. No minions on the board, and all of our spells actually target minions. So game is progressing pretty slowly for us here. Paladin Secret. Nothing really great on the Paladin Secrets that's going to hurt us. It may make our 7/7 irrelevant by the time we're able to get our hero card down. Outside of that, it's just going to be Galloping Savior, which actually puts a minion on the board for us to be able to target. We're going to start with the tracking. We just need to find something to do here. And we're going to take the hero card and we're actually going to be playing this hero card next turn. So we still have plenty of time here to be able to get our hero card down. So just to talk about this a little bit more before we get into it, and I'm going to go ahead and finish this turn. We're going to play the Ice Trap, we're going to ping, and I'm going to pass to my opponent. So in part 1, I actually had somebody ask, could you go in depth, this was a comment, about when you play Beast Stalker Tavish versus when you don't. And so I answered that comment. You can still see the answer to that on that original video. But for me, it's pretty much when we play the Beast Stalker Tavish, we can actually have a full clear here if we hit the explosive trap. So in games where we play Beast Stalker Tavish, we need to make sure that we do it. Let's see, how valuable is this? I need to think about this turn. Probably never going to get value out of this. It's just going to be the improved Ice Trap here. And then we're going to take improved explosive. Oh, and we're actually unable to play the other explosive. I didn't realize that you couldn't play like that. And I think we take the multicaster here. We're going to need card draw at some point. And let's see. Arbnets potentially allows us, well, with Shell Shot though. Yeah, we're going to take the multicaster for the card draw. We'll be able to complete this quest and get our hero power just by playing a Shell Shot and then be able to get our 7/7 down. So anytime we're going to play the hero card, we need to make sure that it's played before we actually set our hero power to 0. Because if the hero power is already 0, and then we play our Tavish hero card, the hero power actually goes back to costing 2 again. And so what happens is you come to a point where you just can't do enough in your turns because you're probably only going to be able to hero power twice. That's going to be 4 mana, and then it limits the number of cards that you can play. So we want to really be able to generate a lot of big boards, and in order to do that, we need to be able to play more spells and the free hero powers here. So let's see, we have the 2 Ice Traps. Wicked Stab gets bounced back, and that actually shuts down the chain on the Edwin here. Blade Fighter as well. So we can actually, let's see, what's going to be the best way to do this? We're definitely completing the quest. We complete the quest with Wound Prey and remove this. Or we're actually only completing part 2 here, so this would only give us a free hero power. So I think the play is actually just going to be Wound Shot to remove this, then Shell Shot. I take that back. We're going to start like this. We want to make sure we remove the Edwin. We don't want it being Shadow Stepped. Damage spell is going to be the best for us. This is nice and cheap. 40 card Rogue, it's absolutely possible that they're going to be running a Mutinous. I don't know that for sure, but just to make sure that we don't fall victim to it. We're going to be really careful. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the Krakatoa. It's actually a noble sacrifice. And I'm really just more concerned about removing the Krakatoa here than anything else. So by putting the explosive trap in play, I kind of roped out. You see, maybe trying to talk just a little bit too much. This is going to put the 7/7 in our hand. Our opponent has the mana. Question is going to be whether or not they have Mutinous. If they do, it's still just a 50-50 because we have the multicaster in hand. If they actually hit the Tavish here, we're likely in trouble this game. If they have the Mutinous and if they hit the Tavish. A lot of ifs here. That's not bad at all. The fact that it gets bounced back to their hand just gives us an absolutely free turn here. So we're just going to go wide on the board. And we're going to spend our mana as efficiently as possible. We're just going to go ahead and do damage. We're going to build our board. We're also hitting a lot of Huffers here, so you can see our opponent is going to be taking just a metric ton of damage. We're going to get the Freezing Trap down as well. Just want to get as many minions on the board as we can. 3 Huffers. 3 Huffers. Rolling Huffer is always good too. But going back, I'm not sure that I actually completed my thought. I got tied up in the game, but we just want to make sure if we're playing the hero card that it's going to be at a time that we are able to set our hero power to 0 after the fact. And then as well, we want to make sure that we can also... Oh good, we don't overdraw. We want to make sure that we don't play Tavish in... Specifically for me, I don't think you ever want to play it against Hunter. It's just not good enough. So we can actually just like play Huffers out on the board here. We do have 2 shell shots that'll actually clear the board, so we're going to make sure we clear the board. We're still rolling a lot of Huffers here. And we're just going to go ahead and use the second shell shot as well. We're going to hero power again, and then we may actually just play one of the Huffers from our hand. Huffer from our hand, we don't really have any spells that we can play, so we're just going to go ahead and push another 10 damage face against our opponent here. So they're likely going to be able to clear this board, but they're at 9 health. We don't have any direct damage spells, but we're just going to win by summoning our minions anyway. So I did misspeak there about the direct damage spells. They got a nice random card here with the Rune of the Archmage. They have direct damage spells, but they don't have enough to actually be able to kill us. Yeah, and this ends up being a board clear for them. They do get a little bit of damage to our face. They have a mage secret. So we're going to need to find out exactly what this secret is. We only have 1 spell that we can actually play. I think we're going to start with this, see if it's a counter spell. It's not counter spell, and I actually missed the hero power there, so that is a misplay on my part. Absolutely. So we're going to need 4 Huffers to actually be able to kill our opponent if it is an ice barrier. We're going to see if we can draw some cards here. And it looks like this is actually explosive runes. We're going to hit this shot, and then we just have lethal with the Huffer in hand. So I did misplay there. Believe it or not, it's actually hard to play sometimes when you're going over the game and talking as much as I am. Not that that's any excuse whatsoever, but you can kind of get the idea here. But, you know, just how we're able to progress through the game. I really think this is a favorite matchup for the Quest Hunter. If you're seeing a lot of rogues, it's just a good matchup. You should be able to get in there and do some damage. We really just want to save our spells to make sure that we're removing minions on our opponent's side of the board. The rogue is going to win through just developing a board and then being able to use that board pressure to kill us. And we just want to be able to use our damage spells to be able to prevent that. Again, Quest Hunter, really more of a control deck. It's a control deck all the way up to the point to at least where you complete the quest. And then once that quest is complete, that's when you start looking for lethal. Again, there's no such thing as a universal rule. You might still have to use some of your spells defensively to make sure that your opponent doesn't get a super strong board to actually be able to kill you the following turn. But that's pretty much the general gameplay pattern for Quest Hunter. And we're going to be moving right on along into the next game. Back for another game, we see our opponent is showing Druid. Druid actually is a believable class. I noticed they don't have the golden borders, so I wouldn't be surprised if this was Rogue. I want to keep the Tavish. If it is like Alignment Druid, being able to get this hero down, and then with the free hero powers is going to be pretty much the only way you're going to beat Alignment Druid. We need to get this in play before the alignment, and then, you know, hopefully be able to set our hero power to 0 as soon as we can after that. We'll be able to get the Beaststalker Tavish on 5. I think that means we should be able to beat our opponent, but this is definitely a key card if it is Alignment Druid. Can potentially also be good, you know, against other versions of Druid. I think this card is always fine versus Druid, but specifically versus Alignment, I think you have to have it. This ends up being the Lady Prestor version of Druid. I still think that the Tavish might actually be the stronger route to go. You can win by just going for the damage route, but Tavish definitely going to be good just getting the minions on the board. Still not exactly sure if this is going to be Lady Prestor or if it is going to be the alignment version. I'm just going to go Wound Prey here. Question is whether or not we want to play the Arcane Shot. I don't feel like we necessarily have to play it, and I think we actually want to save it just because our hand isn't doing anything else next turn. Just in case we need to remove a minion from the board, we'll keep it in hand. Now this starts to look more like alignment. So we will spend our mana this turn. We just get down the explosive, I think, and the arcane shot. Now, although now that I say that, so there's pros and cons if we play the explosive trap. If we do, then multicaster will draw 2, which would be perfectly fine for next turn. But if we do and we arcane shot, then that means we're at a point that next turn we cannot play a damage spell because it will set, at that point, one more damage spell would set our hero power to 0, and then we mess up our Tavish. So I think we're fine to just play these two, and then next turn the plan is just going to be multicaster to draw 2. Turn 5 will be coin Tavish. We should be fine no matter what our opponent is trying to do here. So if our opponent chooses to go, say, hero power and attack, then that will put us to 1 of 2 for the next step, which would be the concern as far as, not being able to use a damage card. That's also possible they just guff. This is the guff turn if they have it. If they don't have it, it looks like they're looking for it. With 40 cards, though, it just makes it harder to find everything. At least as far as Moonlit Guidance and Aquatic Form, it makes it harder to find things. With Cold Tooth Mine and Jerry Rig Carpenter, though, you should still be able to tutor what you want. They could actually align us next turn. If they do, it's probably fine. I like to get this card down before alignment comes out, but you don't necessarily have to. As quickly as they've been able to move, and as slow as we've been moving, we're not going to actually be able to complete the quest. So when we complete the quest, we're going to have the 5 mana quest reward. And that just makes it really, really awkward when it comes to being able to play it and get the free hero power, or rather get the repeatable hero power. Just going to go ahead and stick to the plan. We're going to get some tempo on the board and draw cards here. Again, we don't know exactly what our opponent has in hand. So, it's possible that they don't have the alignment here. It looks like they don't. We're just going to coin Tavish as planned. We do have the explosive trap in place, so we can take an additional explosive trap. It does a lot of damage. Snakes just put minions on the board, which can be good with our hero power. Improved Ice Trap. Druid typically has a lot of cheap spells. This doesn't have as much impact on him, so it really comes down to, do we want to try to get more quest progression? And I think we do. Plus, it's going to deal 5 to our opponent with 2 explosive traps. Emergency maneuvers. This is good in certain situations. We don't necessarily have a minion that we want 2 copies of. Like if all you have is Huffer, and you can almost guarantee Huffers if your opponent chooses to kill the minion. Or, of course, the Raj Najan. Best option here for me is just going to be the Snake Trap. And then we're going to pass over to our opponent here. Our opponent's impressed with our gameplay, so that's always nice. Ideally, we would like to be able to complete the quest before they're able to align us. Pretty obvious this is an alignment druid. They were checking for the ice trap here. We actually outsmarted our opponent, which feels good. I was actually expecting to see a raid boss come down after that Innervate was played, but it looks like they don't have it. We're going to get our snakes here. Again, snakes are just good with the hero power if we happen to roll the Leok. If our opponent chooses not to attack face, Leok would actually allow us to clear. There's the alignment, so Leok is going to be out of the question, unfortunately. This is a pretty good draw, though. We need something cheap. Our mana's going to be building slow. They're also going to have one more... They're also going to have one more alignment in the deck to be able to reset us, so we're expecting our opponent to do some crazy things here, to be quite honest. We're going to be able to set our hero power to 0, though. Ideally, they don't find the second alignment until after we're able to get the quest reward down. Unfortunately, even if we get the quest reward in our hands, we are, at this point, 4 turns away from being able to play it. Also, just having the 2 explosive traps up can be somewhat useful. There's a piercing shot, so our opponent can actually increase the health on this card by using the earthen scales. So the question is, do we just go ahead and totally remove it? The answer to that is I almost think we do. Likely they're going to end up saving their minions to just remove the stuff that we've hero powered on the board anyway. But I think we can just, like, piercing shot. We could even wound prey face. Hit a free hero power and potentially hit a Leok. In which case we're not going to wound prey face. I just want to get this off the board, I think. Advance the quest. We'll be able to complete the quest at 3 mana, but it's still going to be a couple of turns before we can get our free hero power. Also keeping in mind that if we spend our entire 5 mana on the, yeah, and that gives us a good trade here. I'm just going to go ahead and take it. They'll be able to trade for the Leok, but it prevents them from having minions to be able to trade with our future, with the future minions we're going to be putting on the board here. So, the game is really going to depend on whether or not our opponent is able to find that second alignment. Are we going to be in a position from a board state to be able to get the 5/5 down? Because if we spend our entire 5 mana turn on just putting down the 7/7, we could be vulnerable to a big board taking lots of damage. Our opponent, though, choosing to leave the explosive traps up, which is interesting. I would almost think that they would want to go ahead and proc those so that any board they build would be safer. And they've done that now. You can see there an interesting little interaction. We actually went to 3 steps of the quest. Interesting that they would allow to do that. It's just almost like a weird coding type thing. And our opponent's afraid of dying, it looks like. There's a barbed net, so I mean we have... So we can actually draw a Naga, play the Naga, and then barbed nets would kill 2 of these. Aim shot, and barbed nets would remove this. We just need to remove as much power from our opponent's side of the board as we can. So let's go ahead and draw our cards here. Unfortunately, it's the Krakenbane. And we want this to be able to activate our barbed net, I think. We're just going to go ahead and play it. Get rid of those. We hit the Huffer here. Question is, does Huffer go face or do we trade into the 8/8? I think we actually want to punch the 8/8. We want to soften it up and just make it easier to kill. We're not really in a position where we're ready to try to kill our opponent. If our opponent does play alignment again, though, it's going to align the Tavish, which is going to be really, really good for us. So, it feels like we should be okay. We're still in that portion of the game where we're going to be playing like a control deck, though. We just need to try to make sure that our opponent doesn't actually kill us. If they don't remove the 3/3, a Leok roll would give us a value trade here as well. So again, going back to one of my favorite questions, how does our opponent win from here? They're likely on Kazakhstan to be able to win the game. Otherwise, they're just trying to establish a very big board. And then how do we win the game? We just need to not take damage until we can actually get our quest reward down, and then have a nice turn to be able to go nice and wide with our hero power here, summoning these pets. This is a really strong turn, though. Our opponent's Kazakhstan is going to be online relatively quickly. And there we see the earthen scales. We hit the explosive trap, which is going to clear up a lot of things on the board, which is going to be good news for us. I'm almost tempted to play the freezing trap, simply because it beefs up the multicaster, right? We've played Arcane. We've already played we played Arcane Explosive. We have not played an ice spell yet, so let's see what we get from this first. We get a Huffer, so that's a good trade here. And we can actually potentially bounce the raid boss back. Let's see, if we go aim shot there, aim shot there. Not sure how good that is. Let's get some more options in our hand. Ice trap, there's a shell shot. We're doing this. And we're gonna aim shot here. And no reason to do anything else, I don't think. The freezing trap is just gonna bounce back one of these whelps. So it looks like we still might actually be taking 12 damage here. Next turn we'll be able to get our Tavish down, assuming we're in a bored state that we don't just die the following turn. And then we should be ready to go after that. Our opponent kind of at a point where they can't actually align, because if they align without a Kazakhstan in hand, then they're going to get to a point where they can't really play it. This is the kind of board state that I was talking about here. Our opponent has so much damage that we're actually just dead if all we do is play the hero card. So we have to look at removing some things. So let's start with the hero power. We hit another Huffer. But even then, it just looks like we could potentially be dead. So we're going to have to find other ways to be able to play this turn. That was unfortunate to say the least. So we just need to remove some power from the board here. And then Ice Trap and Freezing Trap. So it's actually not looking all that good for us now. We weren't able to get down our hero, or rather our quest reward, and you can see it's just been so slow without being able to do this and generate the very large boards. And we've just taken a lot of damage here. And unfortunately, it looks like that's probably going to be the end of the game for us. We are not going to be able to win this because we would need to be able to remove their entire board, but we also need to get down the Tavish. We're out of damage spells, so it's actually looking not too good. I'm kind of interested to see, the correct play here is for them to lock out a spell, because we would have to play spells to try to not die. They choose to lock out a minion. We couldn't play the minion anyway, but we're actually just dead. So we're going to concede this game. Unfortunate. Alignment is a tough matchup. We just weren't actually able to get our quest reward down. Also unfortunate that our opponent was able to find the alignment in a 40-card deck. Back for another game. Our opponent is showing Mage. Again, that's a believable class. Looks like they've got the golden border. Wouldn't be surprised if it was a Mage. Also wouldn't be surprised if it was a Rogue. Really hard to tell these days. We have the hero power, the hero card in hand again. I think it's likely fine in this matchup. Could actually be good in this matchup. If it really is Mage, we're going to be looking to leverage our ice traps to make sure that they can't play those big spells early. So it's pretty likely that they're able to switch the cost of spells with the Barbaric Sorceress, just because our hand is most likely going to be all spells. So we're really just wanting to block those big spells with Ice Trap, no matter how much they cost. And the only obstacle to that is we need to make sure that our opponent does not have a coin in hand. So we need to time the Ice Trap appropriately, and hopefully our opponent doesn't have a coin in hand. One of their options would be to potentially save the coin to soak an Ice Trap. And we can see here that it is actually going to just be the big Spell Mage. Obviously a very good deck. And we don't necessarily have to play this. I mean, they only have 30 health. They do have the potential to be able to gain quite a bit of health, though. I mean, it seems like a pretty easy shell shot here. I think we just do it. Don't have a whole lot to do next turn. Is a bit of an issue. But I think it just makes sense to go ahead and get those off the board and not take that damage. There may be a turn or two where we have to take some big hits from some dragons on the board, or possibly a Belinda that we can't clear. So we have a multicaster that draws 1. I mean, we could go Coin, Howl, and then Kraken to remove this. That doesn't seem that good. Drawing 1 doesn't seem good. This draws 1, and that doesn't seem good. We could just Hero Power here. Our opponent has 2 coins. They could go potentially Coin, Barbaric Sorceress, and if the Barbaric actually hits our Ice Trap, that's really, really bad news for us. So I'm inclined to actually just play the Multicaster and try to keep as many spells in our hand as possible, because if the Ice Trap gets hit by Barbaric Sorceress, it's going to be at a amount of mana that we can't play. And if it gets hit, we would need to coin the Tavish next turn to be able to hit the improved Ice Trap. So feels bad, but we're just going to take the 1 draw here. Pick up a nice cheap damage spell. So that play kind of gives us the insurance. It looks like it is going to be a Barbaric Sorceress. So whether it hits Ice Trap or coin, we would have been fine. Now we have options. Do we want to play the Tavish or not? Playing the Tavish seems fine. I think I like the Tavish here. We're just going to go ahead and coin it out. We're just going to need to make sure that we hit that improved Ice Trap. Our opponent no longer has coins. I guess... Freezing Trap just removes one of these minions from the board. It prevents him potentially from drawing a card. And this being 10 mana doesn't seem all that threatening. Really looking for that Ice Trap, and there's the Ice Trap. So our opponent doesn't have any more coins. So if they try to play that big spell that was just discounted, then it's going to mean that it's actually going to get bounced back into their hand, which is really good for us. If they try to attack, one of their minions gets bounced back and becomes so expensive we likely don't see it again the rest of the game. And then if they go face, of course, we're going to be able to get the... Oh, that's right, we didn't take the explosive. Also, we have really slow quest progression in this game, which likely plays into our opponent's favor, just because it's going to give them more time to be able to do things. But we're nice and healthy. We're not really at risk of taking a lot of damage here. We're going to be able to clear things up with this Krakenbane really nicely as far as the 3/7. We're going to play an Okani. And I'm assuming they're going to pick a spell. We're going to test this with a spell, likely the Freezing Trap. Freezing Trap is, I'm going to say, the least valuable. I think we want the tracking. So we can go like Freezing Trap, it gets eaten, and then we can go Barbed Net and Krakenbane to remove the 3/7. Yep, spell counter. So we're going to go ahead and do this. We will play our Krakenbane. Just to try to make sure we're not taking damage on the board. And then, again, you know, one of my favorite questions, why? Why would we trade into the 2/6? There's no reason to, you know, we don't need to soften it up to trade for it later. We'd really just be missing 3 damage face. If that damage goes upstairs, I don't care about a 2/6 sitting here on the board. We're still protected from spells by our improved ice trap. As soon as the improved ice trap is gone, we just play the regular ice trap. Likely next turn we're going to be tracking to try to find something to advance our quest. Again, quest progression is really slow. To the point that quest progression being slow could actually cost us this game. That's going to be the way that we lose, is if we're just too slow. So we want to do everything that we can to try to get damage spells and get them played. This is actually just going to get cards out of our deck, so that's going to be really good for us here. I mean, we just take the quick shot, right? Although at some point, I mean, quick shot, if we naturally draw it later, we may be able to cycle. This thing being 10 mana likely never gets played, though. It lets us spend our mana if we just take the quick shot here. We're going to do this, and we're just going to send the damage face. Hero power. Do we take a value trade here? Is the question. I don't really see any reason to. I mean, we force our opponents to have to try to remove our board by doing this. We know they're not going to be able to do anything to us with these big spells in hand. They're actually probably just hoping they draw second Mailbox Dancer so that they can use the coin to proc this. Actually do play that for 7 mana. Really, really sad here, the order that we're drawing cards. But it is what it is. Having second Ice Trap in hand is good. Again, we're not going to get blown out by these big spells that they're going to be potentially having in their hands, but the issue is going to be we're just so slow with the quest this game. The draw is just really bad. Also, you know, potentially if our opponent hits the hero card, that ends up being really bad for us as well. Such a weird game. We're going to be able to block their spells 3 turns in a row, though. And even if they hit the second Mailbox Dancer, if they hit the second Mailbox Dancer, that's potentially going to cause us problems because of the Grey Sage Parrot. If they can get off one of the, if they're able to get off one of the spells, then the 2 Grey Sage Parrots would be able to repeat them. In that case, we're hoping that they would play a Rune of the Archmage more so than the Drakefire Amulet, because we don't want those big dragons coming down turn after turn. We're just going face here with this. I really want to hold this, I think. I mean, there could actually be some merit to playing the Ice Trap and then using the Krakenbane to kill this. We really need a damage spell. This also puts an extra 3 power on the board for the following turn. Could even just send the damage face. Sending the damage face actually is a lethal setup for next turn. I mean, that has to be correct, right? We're going to try to set up lethal here, so potentially we are looking to force our opponent to have some type of healing, either hero card, deep water, evoker. They can ping and trade for this, in which case we still have 6 damage on board. Huffer would be lethal. We have a quick shot, we have 2 aim shots, so we can potentially just kill them next turn. I mean, we can also draw damage, complete the quest, and then get, you know, multiple minions that way. So you can see we were just able to get here there. The big spell mage is a bad matchup coming into our quest hunter, just because they don't ever really get to play their big spells as long as we're wise with the way that we're using our ice traps. So you know, just a pretty solid game plan there. We just don't let them get those big spells off. They're really dependent on having that coin to be able to proc the ice trap. But, you know, we were ready for that. We were ready to play around it. And then on that last turn, we were just trying to set up lethal. I think pretty high odds that there was some way in which we were going to be able to kill them next turn, either through completing the quest or, you know, even just drawing, like, the damage to be able to kill them. So, a pretty solid game there. That is actually going to do it for the video. This was Explaining the Plays part number 2. If you're interested in watching part number 1, you can find that on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to be doing additional gameplay videos as time goes on. Also, really looking forward to the Murder at Castle Nathria expansion. You can check out some of my theory crafting decks. I'm going to have more of those in the coming days as well. Thank you again for watching. I'm Uncorrupt. I'm definitely looking forward to see you in the Murder at Castle Nathria expansion.